Quick aside before we get started, if anything I say here sounds wrong, just keep in mind I've only read the books, and I haven't seen any of the television show, so if something's completely different, just know that. Welcome to my clickbait video. If you haven't seen, read, or intravenously injected the Game of Thrones series yet, then what the is wrong with you? So Machiavelli has a lot to say on how to lead a nation, obviously, and today I'm going to break down the top 5 things that he would say Cersei Lannister did wrong in leading Westeros. Look, I know in the last video I said you should align yourself with the church, but that doesn't mean you let them have their own army. When Cersei foolishly allows the church to break a law set about hundreds of years ago and once again form their own military, she unknowingly creates yet another adversary for herself. The throne was already weak from the War of the Five Kings, and she decides to stupidly use the church's army as a bargaining chip for some quick political points. You don't allow the church to arm themselves. You do let the church sit in at your fancy dinners. You do let them be a part of your coronation ceremony, and you do pretend to give a shit about what the church thinks about you when you're ruling the kingdom. Machiavelli says you should strive to look good, and in doing so, you shouldn't actually be good. Now that's the difference here. You want to be friends with the church, but you don't also want the church to be able to do whatever the hell they want. If you do, all you're doing is creating another party that can potentially control and overthrow you. It's the same thing as arming all the nobles. It's just not a great idea. She lets her jackass son do whatever he wants. Machiavelli specifically says,
Se non puoi essere entrambi, è meglio essere temuti che amati.
And if you don't speak Italian, he's saying that if you can't have both, it's cool to be feared rather than loved. He still says you should try and have both. Cersei's little snot-nosed brat son doesn't seem to believe this. He likes to prance around and hang the heads of respected nobles from the ramparts. He likes to yell at peasants and have them executed for throwing cow at them. He humiliates his enemies and shouts like a baby when he doesn't get what he wants. Machiavelli says a leader should strive to appear virtuous. Joffrey fails to do so and also breaks another rule he says to avoid. He uses unnecessary cruelty to try and force the peasants into submission. He's trying to cultivate fear, but all he does instead is cultivate hatred. All you need to do is scare your peasants into submission. You don't want to humiliate them and beat them into the dirt to the point where all of them are going to hate you forever. She allies herself with someone who is significantly stronger than her. At the end of the War of the Five Kings, Cersei Lannister and the rest of King's Landing is saved from a siege by the arrival of her father and the armies of Highgarden. She immediately tries to become friends with the people of Highgarden, whose armies are not battle-torn and weary, unlike her own. Machiavelli says in his book that you should try and avoid becoming too close of allies with people who are significantly stronger than you. If they suddenly decide that they want to have what you have, it's really difficult for you to fight them off, especially if you just got done fighting a huge war with 4 other people involved. You want allies who are weaker than you, so if and when something goes wrong, you can bully them into working with you if things get desperate. Machiavelli is pretty clear in The Prince. You can't spend all your money, and you can't give it all away. Cersei clearly doesn't understand this concept, because right after the war is ending, she spends a large portion of the throne's treasury to build a stupid ship named after her idiot son. You can't feed your peasants with a ship. You need to spend the money on necessary supplies and be careful how you save as well. If you don't be thrifty, then your population's going to turn on you. Maybe right after a siege gets over, instead of building a ship and paying for a crystal crown for whatever religious leader you've just put in place, instead you put that money into bringing in more food, cleaning up the streets, rebuilding the walls that were just destroyed. She tears down every single thing her brother just built. If you haven't seen Game of Thrones, I'll offer you a quick little recap. Cersei's dwarf brother Tyrion was at one point put in charge of taking care of the realm and generally ruling King's Landing. He made some pretty smart plays that Machiavelli would have approved of. First off, he taxed prostitution. It didn't make him popular, but it didn't make him hated. What it did is it filled the throne's treasury up just a little bit more so they had some more money to spend in this wartime. He also removed corrupt nobles from power, and instead of putting in other corrupt nobles, he put in able and capable people who were willing to work with him and listen. And finally, he put money into fortifying the city's defenses so when the attack finally did come, they were at least somewhat prepared. Cersei throws all this out the window like the dummy she is. This should have been the easiest political move in the world for her. Machiavelli argues that if you need to make an unpopular decision, have someone else make it for you so you don't look bad. She didn't even have to do this. She didn't even have to make the decision. Her brother already did, and he was already catching flack for it as well. And instead of letting those decisions stand, she removes the tax, brings back the bad nobles, and starts spending money on things they don't need when all she has to do is keep Tyrion's laws in place, and if anyone gets mad at her, blame the dwarf. It's easy. Everyone already hates him, all the flack will go off onto him. Those are the top 5 things Machiavelli would argue Cersei did wrong in leading King's Landing. If you like this video, leave a comment below, subscribe, and hit the like button. See you next time.